All right, and we are live. All right, everybody, we're back.
We're back.
Yeah, we just missed podcasting so much we had to make a return. You know, the chopping block has been around for years, really, and even though it's been a minute since our last, I guess, season of this show, we just couldn't resist coming back because we have so much fun with it.
And we know that you all love us, so it's fine. Yeah, man, gosh, man, it's been like a year and a half
Yeah,
since we've done the chopping block. It's been a minute, but life happens, takes some twists and turns, but we're back, and we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today, or
yeah,
tonight, I should say.
yeah. We're doing that late night podcast thing. We've been following some events that have been going on lately in the worlds of MMA and pro wrestling. And as we get set up here and we get rolling and checking our settings and making sure everything's looking good here, we'll just give a brief intro for those who don't know about the podcast and what it is. Basically, the Chopping Block is an open topic podcast that we do here on my channel, Axeman Gaming. We've been doing it for a few years, like we said. It's gone through different incarnations. It started as a video, and it kind of, we've done several different versions of it. Basically, it's just like a chill session. We get together, we talk about whatever we want, and it's always a good time.
Yeah, it is, and it's just we're just sitting around, just talk about stuff that we love, and also we wanted to bring it live so you guys can come in and you know give your thoughts and kind of give you that personal relationship with us too. Because like Ax said, we've done a lot of transitioning throughout the years, and now we're finally able to get to the point to where we can actually do it live and you guys can be a part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we get set up here and get rolling and get started with this new incarnation of the podcast, we just want everybody to come along and join us for the ride. And yeah, dude, check the channel and see if everything's rolling okay on your end. I'm checking it here, but just want to double check before we start covering our topics tonight.
Not a problem, and I'm going to apologize for the audio that if you happen to hear it, hopefully you won't, but you never know. All right. You should be on. What the qua?
Are we live or no?
Yeah, we're all right. I got us pulled up.
Are we live or no?
Yep.
Are we
Yeah,
rolling?
we're doing good. Yeah, we're doing good, man. Looks great.
All right, good stuff. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and move right into it. The first thing we're going to discuss is the UFC 241 card, man. It was a great card. Could say it was the best of the year so far, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, no, they actually put on a very, very good card, and like you said, the best this year. Had a lot of action-packed, segments in it, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, it's just stacked from top to bottom, and really the major selling point of the card was the last three fights. We had a showdown between two of the scariest guys in the middleweight division, and then we had one of the most exciting fighters facing somebody else who was returning after a long hiatus. And in the main event, we had the heavyweight championship of the world on the line. So we're going to start with the middleweight clash. We have Paulo Costa defeating Yoel Romero by unanimous decision, and man, what a fight.
I'm telling you that came down to the wire, man. I wouldn't want to be a judge, in
Yeah,
that particular fight because and that's what we live for too, is those fights. But I think gosh, what's his name? Costa.
yeah.
Okay, sorry guys. WD-40 over here trying to get the rust off, but Costa, yeah, I think it came down to his strikes and his octagon, control. Because he
Absolutely.
was aggressive like the whole entire time. He did not let up.
Yeah, he was walking Yoel down, and the thing is too, I noticed this as well. And Yoel is easily, in my opinion, the scariest guy in that division, just because of how explosive he is, his knockout power, the way he can just decimate fighters. I mean, great fighters. We've seen what he did to Luke Rockhold. We saw what he did to Chris Weidman and all these different fighters. But his last fight, man, with before Costa, when he fought Whitaker, that was another fight of the year contender in my opinion. And the thing about that was everybody focuses on the damage that Romero did to Whitaker in that fight, and he did. He almost knocked him out multiple times. But I also think that that fight took a lot out of Romero.
Yeah, it did, because it challenged him to. I don't think he's ever been challenged at, he's never been threatened like that before. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I think he's had some good competition like in the past, but this is one of those to where he actually had to use everything in his arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is too, like Romero has this weird ability to defy age. Like he just at 40 years old, he's like, he's got a physique and he's got abilities that people, only, people wish they had. People 10 years younger than him had. But I think the difference with he and Whitaker in the last fight is, Romero is in his 40s. Whitaker's not even in his 30s yet. So Whitaker, even though he took a lot of damage, possibly took more damage, he's got the ability to recover a little quicker. He's younger, his body can heal itself a little better, whereas Romero, I think that fight with Whitaker took a lot out of him. So we didn't really see him being quite as explosive. We saw him get his shots in, and he was definitely, he wasn't getting shut out, but like you said, Costa proved that, his undefeated record wasn't the only thing impressive about him. He also proved he can take on top competition, because that was really the only question we had about him. It's like we knew he was undefeated, we knew he was powerful, we knew he was a really scary fighter, but the question was, what was going to happen when he takes on somebody who's been at the top, who's fought for the title, who has devastating knockout power, and man, he passed the test with flying colors.
Absolutely. I think a title shot is in the picture, like probably in the near future. We probably won't even have to wait that long. Maybe like a fight or two, maybe just to be certain on where the rankings are, and then he might be up there with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got the rankings pulled up here. We know that rankings aren't an exact science, but we wanted to have these on screen just so anybody who's joining us or tuning in can kind of see where we're coming from here. And these rankings show that with that victory, Costa jumped 5 spots. He's now number 2 in the middleweight division. Of course, Whitaker's the champ. Adesanya's number 1 as the interim champ. I think they're fighting either next month or in October. It's soon. It's very soon.
Don't quote me, but I believe it's in October.
Yeah, so not that far away, and I think the winner of that fight, it would be great to see Costa get that shot, because the only other people in the division, I think, who really really could have a shot. I mean, you have Gastelum, who fought Adesanya to a close decision, but I think Adesanya clearly won that fight, even though it was very competitive. And I think you have Jack Hermanson, who's been surging in the division, but if I'm not mistaken, he's facing Jared Cannonier, and you have Brunson, who just fought. You have Weidman, who's moving up to light heavyweight, and now we have Jacare, who he may retire. We don't even know. So I mean, it's like you have Gastelum and you have Costa. So it's like Gastelum had his shot with Costa still undefeated, just beat former title contender. I say, hey man, it only makes sense to give him the next shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you brought it up, just throw this right quick in here. Weidman, what do you think about his division, like his jump? Like, what do you think? Do you think that's wise, or do you think he should have stayed?
I think it's wise in some ways and not in others, because if you look at it, you see some fighters have had a lot of success moving up. Case in point, the man we were just talking about, Robert Whitaker. Robert Whitaker started out as a welterweight. He did so, had some wins, got some losses, and now he's undefeated as a middleweight, and he's the champion. The guy we're going to talk about next, Anthony Pettis, came up from lightweight, and in his first welterweight fight in the UFC, knocked out a guy who had fought for the title. And so we have seen people be successful by moving up, and it shows that cutting extra weight is not always the best idea. On the other hand,
though,
yeah, we did see Luke Rockhold, Weidman's old rival, move up recently, and he was brutally knocked out by Jan Blachowicz. And again, that's a top 5 guy, so there's no shame in that. But Weidman's also fighting a top 10 guy. Reyes is ranked higher than Blachowicz is, so I think it's a risky move, but it's a risky move that could pay off.
It could pay off, because I think he just wants to get himself, at least in the top 10. To at least be like in the title picture sooner rather than later. Let's put it that way.
Right, exactly. He wants to establish himself, and he probably really doesn't see a lot of room for success anymore at middleweight. And maybe he
Right.
believes that the reason he is being more susceptible to knockouts is maybe he's just dehydrated. You know what I mean? Maybe the weight cut kills him, because a lot of these guys that talk about their fight camps, they're like, a majority of what they do is cutting weight. And Weidman's like 6'2", he's got a big frame, so if he moves up, he may not have to even worry about cutting that much weight. So it could pay off.
Right, because like when you like Joe Rogan when he said like during the pay-per-view, these guys are trying to cut weight. I mean, they're running like 20 miles a day,
Right.
and they have to get off like I don't know, insanely. I think he said 50 pounds of like water weight or something like that.
Yeah,
He
that's
said
nuts.
that could take a toll on a fighter. Yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. I couldn't even imagine it. I think I ran 20 miles like one day, and yeah, dude, it was a rough day, and the
feel
days
like
after it are
death.
rough too, man. Yeah, man, I couldn't imagine having to go into the gym the next day after that, do sparring, do jujitsu, do all these different drills, man. It would just be hell. So moving up could be a good idea. But speaking of moving up, we had our next fight was a guy who moved up to the welterweight division. That was Anthony Pettis, and he welcomed back somebody who had been back in action for the first time since 2016, Nate Diaz. And man, not only did Diaz get a hero's welcome upon his return, proving that he is that kind of megastar the UFC needs right now, but he also had
exactly.
a spectacular performance.
Oh my gosh, man! Like Rogan said, he seems like he's never left.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, and you know that that's rare to have in a fighter. You know, they always talk about like, if you will, like ring rust or something, or octagon rust, or whatever you want to call it. But he didn't. He just showed up, and he showed us that, hey man, I I deserve to be here, and plus, who you got next? I want the next guy. Matter of fact, who did he call out?
Yeah, after the fight was over, he called out Jorge Masvidal, and dude, that is a
Yeah,
dream fight.
exactly. And it's just like he's not waiting around. He's like, yeah, I might have been gone for like 3 years, but hey, he's like, I'm still better than ever, and he's like, bring it on, I'm ready. I'm
Yeah,
ready to go.
yeah, he went from not being ranked before that because of obviously his inactivity. Now he's at number 7 in the division, which is extremely impressive.
Insane. It's
And
insane because 3 year break and then he wins and bam, he's already in the top 10.
yeah, immediately, and he's calling out the number 3 guy, and I think honestly, if they were to have that fight, the winner of that fight would be probably the next person in line to take on the next champion.
Number one problem.
Yeah, we're gonna have Usman versus Covington, and the winner of that fight is gonna be champion. I'd say the loser of that fight could be penciled in next to maybe face Tyron Woodley, maybe face Leon Edwards, or maybe even those two could face each other, and we could have Masvidal versus Diaz. And with Masvidal's last 2 fights, man, a knockout over Darren Till, who had just fought for the title, and a record-breaking knockout that banished Ben Askren to the Shadow Realm. That that amazing fight alone, would put him in the running for a title. So you couple that with the win over Till. If he's able to get a win over Diaz, or if Diaz is able to get a win over him, whoever would come out ahead in that fight, I think you couldn't really deny him a shot at the title.
Right. Exactly. Come on, Dana, give it to us. But all right, what we got next?
Well, the only other real
The
fight that makes sense,
championship.
yeah, the only other fight that would make sense for Diaz, though, at this point, would be the McGregor rubber match.
Yeah, but we gotta talk about him just for a second.
Yeah.
McGregor, we were kind of talking about this before we went live. What the heck is his deal?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, McGregor, for those who don't know, maybe you've been living under a rock or something. Maybe you just don't follow MMA news or TMZ, but a video surfaced of McGregor having an altercation earlier this year in a Dublin bar. Basically what happened was there was an elderly man there. McGregor can be seen apparently trying to offer this guy a shot of whiskey. The guy's refusing. McGregor's kind of putting the cup back in front of him, and you can tell by his aggressive nature they're having words. And apparently, according to reports, the guy says something along the lines of, I don't want to drink that crap. And so McGregor sucker punches him right in the jaw, and gets escorted out of the bar as a result, man. And this Like that is a bad situation, because this is a guy who was on top of the world, man, and that seems like after that glorious ascension, dude, he's fallen just as far, you know?
Yeah, uh, and I think after he got his 15 minutes of fame, and after he pretty much got shown up in his last fight, he just kind of, I think he kind of lost his mind just a little bit.
Yeah, because you have that situation, you have the whole deal with him being he got in trouble for breaking that guy's phone who was trying to take a picture with him. So it seems like the Khabib loss is kind of eating away at him, because he talked so much crap for that fight, he hyped himself up so much, and he got handled. He didn't have anything for Khabib. I mean, you could say maybe he won the
Yeah.
third round, but really he got completely shut out in that fight. And then the brawl that ensued afterwards, that bruised his ego more than anything. And so, it's a tough situation for him to be in. Like, the Diaz fight would make sense, but it's like we're saying, it's McGregor has to get his stuff together soon, because the UFC can't just be bringing McGregor in. We can't have Dana, talking about how awesome McGregor is and all this stuff when he's doing things
Right.
like that, when he's assaulting people, when he's caught on video doing this stuff, and nothing really happens. Khabib spoke about it. Khabib was like, this guy should be in jail. A lot of these bars and
Right.
stuff that used to support Conor, they have made videos where they're pouring his whiskey in the toilet, and everything. So it's like he built this empire, and now he's just kind of watching it crumble, man. Maybe he's that kind of guy who needs a fight that he can train for and an opponent he can focus on to keep himself on the straight and narrow. Maybe Diaz is that guy. Maybe if this Masvidal thing doesn't materialize, or maybe if it does, and whichever way it goes, maybe if he could set his sights on getting back into the cage and actually doing his fighting in the octagon instead of the streets, maybe that can kind of help him, get a grip.
Right. And if not, then, Dana, regardless of what his relationship is with Connor, uh, it's not good for business. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a business. You
Yeah,
know. So you're gonna have to make the best business decision, in regards to that.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And all right, so our main event of UFC 241 was the heavyweight championship, arguably the greatest heavyweight title fight in UFC history. Not just because of the story behind it in the first meeting, but I mean, we haven't seen a war like this since, I'm gonna say, since like Kane and Jr. fought for the second time. Like, this fight, on paper, it was like a lot of people thought Cormier was going to take the rematch because he easily dispatched Stipe in the first fight, but some people were saying, well, it was kind of fluky. He caught him with a good punch, but how many times is he going to do that? Is he going to be able to recreate that in the rematch? And not only he wasn't able to recreate it, but he did have good offense. He definitely won the first round. Second round was a little closer, but Cormier took that one too. But then in the third round, man, we started to see Stipe take a little more control, be a little more active,
Right.
getting some good shots in. And then came the fourth round, man, and this is where Stipe made that amazing adjustment to his game plan, where he's like, you know what? I've been sitting here throwing head strikes the whole fight. Let me switch this up. Let me go to the body, which, by the way, he said he got that idea from Cormier's fight with Anderson, where Anderson hurt him with the body kick.
Yep.
He starts
Mhm.
he starts implementing the body strikes, man. At first, it seemed like Cormier was, he was just eating them, but a body strike is like a leg strike in a lot of ways. You can't just eat too many of those. They don't really. At first, they may not seem like they're doing that much, but over time, man, those things just add up. And then, he kept throwing it, he kept landing it. Cormier just didn't have an answer for it, man. And as soon as Stipe followed up one of those with a right cross, dude, he just swarmed him, and Cormier crumbled, and new heavyweight champion.
And he earned it.
Absolutely.
Straight up. I'm happy for him, man. And just like you were talking about them body kicks, man, or them body shots. They might not seem like they're doing that much, but as you can see, the wear and tear of them as the fight went on, and he just capitalized. I'm glad they did, because if you remember, Rogan and them, they were talking. It's like, obviously, his striking, like, just squaring up with him, like trying to just go for like haymakers, whatever, wasn't working. So he had to switch it up, and when he did, thank God that light bulb came on, and the result of it, he's new heavyweight champion.
Absolutely, man. And a lot of people were kind of ragging on Stipe because they're saying, oh, he should have fought one time in the interim. But I was like, man, this is a guy who he was one of the promotion's most underappreciated champions during his first reign. He broke the record for title defenses. Everybody thought Ngannou was gonna wipe the floor with him. He outworks Ngannou, makes him look like they don't belong in the same octagon together. He knocked out Overeem, he knocked out Junior, he knocked out Verdum. He was just running through the division, and he never quite got the respect that he deserved. So I'm glad that he sat out and waited for his rematch, and he proved, he's not only a guy who can go in there and knock people out, he's a tactical fighter. When he's in the heat of battle, he can still think and he can still make those adjustments. And next fight for him, man, I mean, there's the Ngannou rematch, that there's potential for that, but I mean, Ngannou's always dangerous. He's that guy that can end any fight in one punch if he lands flush, but at the same time, man, I just don't know if it's been long enough for Ngannou to close that gap in the wrestling department between he and Stipe, because he can hope to land that big bomb all he wants, but if he doesn't have an answer for Stipe's wrestling and an answer for 25 minutes of it, we're going to get the same result as last time,
Well, Stipe, I mean, just goes to show, I mean, his jaw is like unbreakable too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he's got a great chin.
He took quite a few big shots in that fight, and so I don't think that game plan would work out very much. But okay, so moving on to the next topic, which we were talking about, what's going on in the WWE world?
All right, yeah, we're going to move on to some pro wrestling talk. Guys, one of the things we discuss here on the chopping block, we've always kind of covered on and off, is wrestling. And during our last incarnation of the chopping block about a year and a half ago, we weren't really doing much with wrestling because, to be honest, we had both kind of lost interest. And that's not to rag on WWE as we're about to talk about him here, but we had kind of lost interest because it just kind of seemed like the product was really bland at the time. But now the world of wrestling in general is heating up beyond WWE because we have a new promotion. We have AEW, and they're scheduled to make their television debut in, what is that, just a couple months, right?
Yeah, October 6th.
Yeah, so right around the corner for that. And WWE has actually moved to counter-program them, and they're doing this by taking their developmental show, the developmental brand NXT, which had a show on the WWE Network, and that's actually going to be getting a 2-hour time slot on the USA Network. Now, for a lot of people who followed NXT back through the years and everything, when you first hear this, man, this sounds like a dream come true. It's like, the freshest, most exciting, most consistently entertaining thing WWE has done for years is now going to be getting a primetime TV spot. But there's more than meets the eye when it comes to this topic, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it sounds good on paper, but as we can see here, they're talking about how it says the USA Network and WWE have one of the longest and most successful partnerships in television history. And it says it's number one cable entertainment network. We're excited to add NXT to our weekly lineup alongside Powerhouse flagship Raw and to bring a new generation of superstars to a wide audience. So basically, NXT now is becoming a third brand. I don't know if it's going to be considered developmental territory or not anymore, but it's basically going to be on par with Raw and SmackDown, and that is kind of the problem. That's what people are worried about, because when they talk about how USA and WWE have had this relationship, I mean, this is a situation where if a TV show with WWE's title on it is going to be moving to the USA Network, it's going to be on national TV, that means for sure we're going to have the same people who are involved with Raw and SmackDown involved with NXT. And one of the main reasons people have said, one of the main reasons people have said that NXT is so successful is because it has different people running it, and those people are able to give it a fresh feel that makes it feel different from Raw and SmackDown. Because, Raw and SmackDown right now, let's face it, the ratings speak for themselves. They keep on tumbling down. The shows don't really seem to be improving much. There's not a ton of consistency. There's a lot of things that just don't make sense on both shows. And the worry is, if NXT is going to be another show that the same people who are running Raw and SmackDown are running, is NXT going to turn into that same type of show? Is it going to turn into Raw or SmackDown Light?
Well, we were talking about this earlier, and we were hoping that, with the adjustments on, I guess, the storylines going forward, where Vince McMahon pretty much put Paul Heyman in charge of Monday Night Raw, and of course Eric Bischoff in charge of, SmackDown, we would start. I mean, granted, they kind of had to let, in my personal opinion, Vince's mess kind of play out, and that's when they'll implement like their new stuff.
Right.
And it's gonna be like a building period. But I just think that this move is just because Vince just can't stay out of the picture.
Right.
He wants to be involved some way, somehow, because I mean he's done it for so long. But
Right.
he needs to understand that his content is not great anymore. I mean,
Right.
that's the reason why the ratings are where they're at.
Yeah.
So for him to kind of put this, like, make this counter move against what I believe is just the counter move against AEW, and their show coming to TNT starting October 2nd, he's just gonna, I don't know, man. I just think it's bad. It's just bad all around.
Yeah, 100%. And
Because,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. What I was just going to say is NXT is great. Don't get me wrong. I love the talent and stuff on there. But for NXT just to kind of solo, and my personal opinion, it's not from a fanboy's like perspective or anything, because honestly, I've been a fan of WWE before even AEW came around. But this was back when the Monday Night Wars was going on, the Attitude Era and all that. But I just don't think the talent is there enough to compete with AEW.
Right. Yeah, and it's
My personal opinion.
yeah, 100%. I agree with you there too, because Vince wants to stay involved, and I don't have the article for this pulled up, but there was an interview Triple H did where he was talking about, like, somebody asked him, I think, about like, well, what does Vince think of NXT? And I think Triple H said Vince had never watched a single episode of NXT. So all these accusations about Vince being out of touch, that's going to come into play here with this new product, because Vince himself is going to be involved. The people who work directly under Vince and will answer to him and perform for an audience of one, they're going to be involved too. And I see people, and I'm not trying to dash their hopes or anything, but people, I guess it's wishful thinking. They're like, oh well, Vince said he's not going to be in control of this. It's not going to change, and he's going to go be with the XFL. And I'm like, this company, and primarily Vince, has said so many things to the fans, man. And when it comes down to it, this is the company that has lied to their fans. They've misled their fans time after time. Hell, and a lot of times they've flat out made fun of their fans. It's hard to believe a company that has misled you so many times, whether it's them promising matches and not delivering, whether it's them promising we're going to start listening to you or this. I mean, it's like, how long until you flip on NXT on Wednesday night and you started out with a 30-minute long Shane McMahon promo, and then yeah, and then you got Johnny Gargano and, say, Velveteen Dream out there having a match, and all of a sudden Roman Reigns comes out, lands a couple Superman punches. Chris Jericho was asked about this, and that's a guy who knows. Yeah, that's a guy who knows Vince. He's worked with Vince personally, and that's a guy who also knows a thing or two about Wrestling Wars, because don't forget, his signing to WWE from WCW back during the Monday Night Wars, that was one of the pivotal moments of that whole era. And he was saying he believes that with NXT coming to Wednesday nights, there's no way that this is not going to be something that overlaps with Raw and SmackDown. We're going to see the same talent, the same stories, the same approaches throughout all three shows. And that leads to another problem, because if people are going to be, obviously if you have two companies like this in the same industry, WWE says they're not a wrestling company. It's like, no matter how far they try to get away from it, they're a wrestling company. They try to distance themselves from the term like it's a dirty word, but they're wrestling. So if you're gonna debate about which wrestling company is better on TV, all AEW has to do is put out 2 good hours of TV a week, just 2. And with the financial backing they have, with the roster they have, and with the creativity their roster members are allowed to enjoy, That's not going to be very hard to do,
Right.
to produce 2 good hours of TV a week. Sure, it's not going to be perfect. Sure, there might be some hiccups along the way with them getting used to the TV and everything, but they can do 2 good hours of TV a week. WWE, on the other hand, has to produce 7 good hours of TV a week now. 7 hours. I don't even know if main event's still on the air. That's like an hour, even though it's most like a recap segment. I don't even know if that's on the network or what the deal is, but right now,
I think that it's on WWE Network.
right? Okay, so 7
Yeah.
hours. And right now, WWE can't produce 5 good hours of TV a week. I mean, if you were to
Right.
pick out the individual segments and the individual matches that are good in WWE right now, you would maybe come up with 1 hour a week. And it's like, how is adding another show going to fix it? I could understand if maybe they would have moved SmackDown to Wednesdays to compete with AEW, but to put another show on, because WWE has had this weird approach over the past few years where it's always like, bigger is better and more is always the answer. It's like, well, let's make the pay-per-views longer, or just have more pay-per-views, or add more commentators to the booth, or call up more superstars from NXT, or make the shows longer, or add more falls to matches. And it's like, sometimes you have to focus on quality over quantity. And if WWE can't produce good TV for the 5 hours they have to fill now, I have no reason to believe that they're going to somehow knock it out of the park with NXT. And I hope it's good. Like we said, as wrestling fans, we want to see all the wrestling companies succeed. It's
Right.
it's more content for people to watch. It's more places for wrestlers to work. It shows networks and advertisers that, hey, wrestling is something that people enjoy, so they can put money behind it. They can, get behind it themselves. So we got high hopes for all these shows, but at the end of the day, man, like I'm way more excited about AEW, and especially because we have All Out coming up. We have the first ever AEW World Championship match. We got Hangman Page. It's going to battle Chris Jericho. We also have Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega. And can we just talk about how exciting Moxley's debut was at Double or Nothing for a second, dude? That was such an incredible moment.
That place went all. I think the roof. They had to repair the roof afterwards. I think
Exactly.
because of the fact that I was watching that and I had no clue, like absolutely no clue that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Formerly known as Dean Ambrose, if people don't know.
Yeah.
He went back to his original, what he did in ECW, I believe.
Just like
Jon
the
Moxley?
the indie scene. Yeah, it's like CZW.
Oh yeah, the indie. Sorry, ECW and the indie. Yeah. Then he switched over to Dean Ambrose, but nobody's seen that coming, man. And when he came in, he started going at it with Kenny Omega, and man, what about that freaking slam off like poker chips?
Yeah, man. It was
Kind of seal the deal.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment. I remember, I thought the pay-per-view was over when Jericho was in the ring, he was saying, "I demand a thank you." I was like, okay. I was like, Hangman's going to come down and do something. So I was minimizing, not that I didn't want to see that, but I was like, minimizing my feed and everything. I was getting ready to, get my stuff ready to just move on with the night. And all of a sudden I hear the crowd going crazy. And I was like, what is going on, man? Look back. There's Moxley coming through the crowd. And it's like, this is the reason we're excited for AEW and why we're really more fans of AEW than WWE at this point. AEW has that excitement factor. With WWE, the people in charge, what you're getting, and like we mentioned this earlier too, it's like AEW, their audience still is kind of, they know what they want and they've gotten a taste of what AEW can do, but there's still that mystery factor. It's like they don't exactly know all the stops this company's going to pull out, they don't exactly know where everything's going to go. But with WWE, it's kind of like they've almost trained their fans not to get too excited about anything. Whereas with AEW, man, like we tune in, it's like, what could happen? Look at Shawn Spears, man. Just the promos they've let him cut, like being himself a little bit, showing a little bit of his own personality. They've made him seem like a bigger deal in like a couple months than WWE did in a couple years.
Exactly, and you have people like MJF.
Yeah.
And you have Jungle Boy.
Right.
And
got the Young Bucks. You got Luchasaurus. Yeah, just so much great talent.
Just a ton of talent. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Ax. I just want to tell you this. Okay, I want to tell the people this. a lot of people have been giving it because I'm on Facebook. I follow these group pages, both WWE and AEW. But one of the people said that is AEW really ready for live television because of how Fighter Fest went. At the end, granted, the whole entire card was great. The matches were great. And by the way, I've seen moves that I've never ever seen before, which is like, what was it they did? Where Luchasaurus threw Jungle Boy like he was like a rag doll outside the ring and just laying on. See, you don't see that in WWE that much.
Right.
But anyways, the way Firefest ended, because the what's her name's gosh, I drew a blank. At the end of it, they were talking to Dustin and Cody,
Mm-hmm.
and they were kind of cutting their little promo for them, and then they kind of ran out of time. And they kind of had to go to where the check was being presented and stuff like that. That's what people are kind of worried about, when it comes to live television, because, you have 2 hours to do what you got to do, and you cannot, that's it.
Right.
So that's what a lot of people were worried about. And don't knock them. Of course, this is a new thing, totally new. I mean, they have to build not only, what you're doing every single day, their talent, but the commentary team, which I think they just now signed, I don't know sure, but it's rumor, WCW legend Tony Schiavone to the commentary team.
The greatest commentator in the history of our sport.
Right, exactly. And along with Jim Ross, and I believe that he's going to be with, what's that one guy? Where's the mask?
I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about.
But yeah, but I think that a 3-man commentary team, it just doesn't work when it comes to, I guess, your weekly segments. Now, if they want to save it for like pay-per-view or something like that, yeah, okay, cool. But if they just have Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, which Jim, he has a little bit of work to do too, because he's not that knowledgeable about the talent.
Right.
This is totally new. Now, if he went, like, during this break that they've had, which I believe Jim Ross, he's a businessman, he's been in it for years, he's probably spent his time getting to know everybody. I mean, he's been on YouTube episodes with the Road to All Out, interviewing people, just kind of building relationships with them. So therefore, he can build his thing,
right?
And but this is new. Okay, there's going to be some hiccups, like you said, Axe, but I guarantee you they will blow NXT out of the water.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say it right now.
I'm going to agree with you. Also, the guy in the mask is Excalibur.
Excalibur, okay.
Yeah, dude.
See, I can never remember his name.
Yeah, I just checked it out on the roster page, and yeah, they got a stacked roster. Just scrolling through it, I can see how stacked their roster is, man. And I agree with you, dude. I think they're going to blow NXT out of the water. No knock on NXT. And here's the thing, too.
Right.
Here's what I'll say this too. With the way AEW has gone so far, and with the way it's being presented, the way it's being handled, anything could happen. But I think if you took a big chunk of the AEW roster, put them in NXT, and then took a bunch of people from NXT and put them in AEW, I still think AEW would have the superior product, because AEW's talent, they're able to show a little more of their personalities. They're able to be a little more creative.
Right.
It seems they have that license of creative freedom that wrestlers need,
right.
Because it's like, look at all your great wrestlers that happened in the last boom period in the late 90s. Your Stone Colds, your Rocks, Mick Foley's, Goldberg, Hollywood Hogan, all these stars that surged in that
Dudley
era.
Boys.
Yeah. Tons of great talent. They were all popular because they got to show a little more of their personality. Their characters were in some ways natural extensions of themselves. So they have that relatability. The fans can feel connected to them. And there's also that the good thing about AEW is where it's new. It's like you don't really feel like there's one group of top guys. You kind of feel like, well, there's tons of people on the roster. Anybody could work their way up to the heavyweight championship. Anybody could work their way up to the top of the card. There's that fan interest where you can get behind somebody, just like you do in MMA, where you can get behind somebody and say, I'm going to follow this person and cheer for them and hope they get to the top. And that's kind of the thrill of being a fan of the show, man. So I agree with you, man. I'm looking forward to the Wednesday Night Wars, but I think AEW is just going to blow NXT out of the water. And one problem I think is going to happen, man, with WWE is this. I really hope that by doing this, WWE doesn't destroy their developmental system, because it used to be that was where they would get talent from all over the world. They would get in, they would put them in NXT, that talent would come up and they'd put them to the main roster. Now it's like, if NXT is just going to be another show on the USA Network, it's just going to be another WWE style show, we hear so many wrestlers who are unhappy on these main roster shows. It's like WWE just kind of, it's like you cut off your nose to spite your face, as the old saying says. They just killed their developmental territory so they could try to stick it to their competition. And another thing I don't think we mentioned is, what about all the people who were subscribed to the WWE Network solely for NXT? Now they're just going to cancel the network,
Right, and if they don't, they will just stick around just so they can get the pay-per-views.
Right.
But yeah, because NXT, I mean, that was their, that was the bread and butter. That's what they, were known on, was WWE Network. And pretty much, I think WWE has cut their revenue by probably down a bunch by doing that. And I think another thing that's going for AEW, I know that we sound like we are fanboys, but we promise you we are not. We just pretty much lay the facts out there, and that's how we see it. We watch both shows, we evaluate honestly, and we just lay it like it is. But they're not tied down to a PG rating.
Right.
And which allows the talent and the guys behind the storylines to kind of work together and do what they want to do.
Right.
Now, will we see blood on live TV? Probably not. They'll probably say that for the pay-per-views.
Right.
But at least we're seeing it. I couldn't tell you the last time I watched WWE that I seen blood.
Yeah.
No joke. They just now recently started putting it back in, with Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar going at it.
Right.
But before AEW kind of made that a thing again, I couldn't tell you the last time I seen blood in a match. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, man. And
so with those freedoms and stuff, man, that's why I think AEW, even though yes, we have to acknowledge that WWE is a billion-dollar company, multiple billion-dollar company, but AEW, they're going to be slowly making that climb. I think, in the end, if you want to do the air quotes with this, the Wednesday Night Wars, AEW is going to end up winning, in the long run.
Yeah, it's gonna be back and forth at the start. I think WWE is gonna pull out all the stops, but like you said, it all comes down to the creative freedom. It all comes down to the talent being able to say things and do things and get creative. Because we were talking about with the whole PG thing and how it limits things. We read that report. We don't know if it's true. It's been disputed. When a new news story breaks in wrestling, there's always the thing: was it just a rumor? Is it a work? Is it is it real? Whatever. But there are rumors that, and this is the second or third time this has really come up over the course of his character, but one of the arguably the hottest thing WWE has going for it right now is The Fiend. And one of the rumors we heard was that some of WWE sponsors, their advertisers, were asking them to tone down The Fiend's character. And Bray said, this is false, don't listen to this, but people were saying, well, we want to tone down his character because he's a little too scary. Like you and me were saying, it's like he's a horror character. He's supposed to be scary, It doesn't make any sense for him to say that he's toned down.
Right. And it's just like everybody knows The Undertaker, his character and stuff. We can kind of include him in that territory. Of course, they're going to do things that are not like what people perceive as normal, because of the fact that they're just portraying what they're supposed to be, which is a freaking terrifying character. That's what they're trying to do. And has spent so many months, developing this character, in which he has done a great job by doing so. I mean, granted, at SummerSlam when he faced Finn Balor,
right?
Man, I loved it. I'm like, man, see, this is the stuff that they need to put back in here. Now, if this is true, it's just like, that just goes back to, the whole rating system. It's like, we kind of made a joke earlier, like they're probably going to have to do like an after dark, wrestling segment. Or
after the kids go to bed.
After the kids go to bed, man.
After
and
the
they
bulk.
want to make a
after the bulk of WWE's
Make
audience
headway.
has to go to bed because it's a school night. Yeah,
Right. So, but it just sucks because Bray Wyatt, man, and he's a good wrestler, and he's really done something like really good, and I just hate to see it kind of get dismantled over this whole rating thing.
yeah, me too. And if it does happen, that's just another testament to what we were saying. That I mean, it all comes down to the talent and being able to express themselves, to be able to not only have their matches in a way they want, but cut their promos and present their characters and have freedom with it. Because when you let talent do that, not only do their natural personalities come out a little more, but it seems like they enjoy what they do more. And when you like what you do it better because you're not stressed, you're not feeling locked down, you don't feel that hint of resentment. So for our money, guys, AEW is going to dominate the Wednesday Night Wars, but we want to know what you think. So,
And I just have
go ahead.
one more thing to say.
Mhm.
I'm sorry before we cut, before we got in this little subject. Okay,
Mhm.
just go back what you said about NXT, like going to a live television slot,
Mhm.
like kind of being the main show. With the rest of that talent, that's probably going to hurt them because if that talent's not going to be getting booked, guess where they're going to go to get booked?
Right,
They're going to go to the competitor, the competition.
right,
Which it's kind of hard. Let's just put it this way: AEW has never said, even though Cody Rhodes kind of did this to himself, but hey, it is what it is. Love them, but AEW has stated from the fact that they're not trying to compete with WWE because they know their place.
right.
You know what I mean? They're just saying, hey man, we love the same thing that they love. We just want to present to the people. We just have our own thing, and that's what we want to do. We just want to put on a great show, and for great product, and that's all we're trying to do. The people have turned this into a quote unquote a competition, like a war, and that's not the case.
Right.
But heck, man, like Cody Rhodes said, and the Rhodes brother, I can't remember. The tag team that's great and all in AEW, like they're tag team champions, I think, right now.
Oh, the Young Bucks?
The Young Bucks. God, man, see, people, I'm telling you, I'm currently spraying WD-40 on me like right now. Yeah, they said bring it on. If that's what they want to make it and stuff, because AEW knows what they have, and I think that's the reason why they're so confident, is because of the fact they know what their competition lacks, and they are capitalizing. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time to be a wrestling fan because we all know that what made the Monday Night Wars so great was the fact that you had two companies that were going head-to-head trying to outdo each other, and they are competing, and what they are competing for is fan interest, and when they have to compete for the fans are going to win. So we're definitely looking forward to that, and we will definitely be talking more about AEW in the future. We're going to be doing I guess we'll probably do a pre-show kind of discussion segment before the pay-per-view happens, and then we'll do something after. Yeah, we'll do a pre-all-out stream, and then we'll do one after, and we'll get some people involved, maybe get some people who want to get on the discussion, some questions and things. And we're also going to be talking about the next UFC pay-per-view coming up. Of course, we have Khabib and Dustin next month, which is going to be crazy. Cannot wait for that fight, man. Is Dustin going to do the impossible, or is Khabib going to continue his legacy? We'll see, but we want to thank everybody who checked out or checks this out, and we're going to be back soon with more content. And you got anything else, man?
No, man, it's just good to be back. I'm glad to be doing this again, and also, putting a new element to the chopping block, which is bringing it live. That way you guys can interact and just, give your live feedback as we're doing this. And I just look forward to doing more stuff, man. It's good to be back.
Absolutely good to be back. See everybody soon for more content. Stay awesome.
Stay awesome, guys.